Thank you all for joining. This is the eighth edition of our Tech Talk series that we're doing as part of the OT Security Professionals community. Today's topic is the one that is going to be on building OT SOC capability. I know we haven't done one of these in a while, but we've started off January kind of on a note that we want to do more of these. We're focusing on doing OT SOC focus sessions for January, so that I know there have been a lot of questions on what the right way is, whether a unified SOC is right. There's been lots of discussions, and honestly, I don't know if there's the right answer. But the best thing is to get different perspectives and make your own choice, right? Because everyone's got a different situation and different requirement. So I'm Kunal. I am one of the core team members here at OT Security Professionals, and joining us today is Divya. Divya is a senior manager at Anheuser-Busch, AB InBev. She's been running their OT SOC for at least about 4 to 5 years now. She's also a business school classmate of mine, so we go a little while back, but she's here kind of to talk about how to run an OT SOC, kind of, and what are the components that are needed just generally in the OT program, OT security program, to make sure the SOC is successful. So before we get in, I want to spend a couple of minutes just talking about hygiene, do's and don'ts. So we'll have about 40 minutes from the speaker. That's Divya today. We'll have 10 minutes for Q&A. So until then, please pop in your questions in the chat window, or rather the Q&A in the Q&A window, and we will leave the last 5 minutes for closing. Any closing remarks, kind of talking about kind of what's coming in the future. Safety rules, right? If you're driving, please stop at a safe location for the duration of the webinar. Safety comes first. So hope you're aware of your surroundings. Just make sure you're in a safe place. And there will be a feedback session. So we'd be happy to hear your thoughts, see what did you like, what can be improved upon, so we can continue on this journey and provide value to you, right? So jumping into, before I hand off to Divya, here's a little bit about her, right? She's kind of worked in cybersecurity both before doing her MBA and after she did her MBA as well. She's worked in kind of the different realms of security. She's done programming herself. She's worked on the OT side as well. Um, and and then kind of she's very active in the cybersecurity community in her organization, but now she's kind of coming in and sharing some of her learnings with us as well. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now, and I'm gonna be handing off to Divya to kind of talk about her journey at AB InBev, talk about cybersecurity in general and OT SOC and how that works. Divya, over to you. Divya, are you there? Can you hear us? We'll be recording the session now that we're getting in the core session of the meeting. Thank you for reminding us, Narendra. But we'll be kind of having some technical difficulties with Divya and her Teams link. Just give her a minute. She'll be in a minute. Hey Divya, we can hear you now.
Hello.
Can
Yeah.
you share your screen?
Yes, I'm
Okay,
ready.
perfect. All right, cool. Thanks.
All right. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. Um, I'll I'll start with a quick introduction of mine, and then I'll take it forward from there. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay, thank you for that. I wanted to just talk about my experience and set the context before starting right off with the slides. Um, so I have been part of the organization I work with. It's a brewery. You might have heard Budweiser and the beers like Corona, Stella. So I work with AB InBev. We make beers, and I've been part of the company for 5.5 years now. So it's been quite long time. And when I joined, it was then the cyber OT program was getting started. So we piloted with 11 breweries that year with a ICS monitoring tool, passive monitoring tool. And since then, we have expanded to 200 plus plants. And apart from the passive monitoring tool, we have also expanded our scope to other capabilities, the tech capabilities. For example, the endpoint detection and response, which is the EDR, the firewalls and secure remote access for the OT assets. And this year, we plan to expand even more, which I'm going to talk about. But talking about the OT SOC capability, when I started, it was in a very nascent stage. No one in the company, and that includes me, really understood what it will take or how is the journey going to be. But over the years, we have added team members, and we are still a very lean team. But I would say we have done hiring very carefully. We are part of the wider SOC here, but the idea is that a small part of the SOC is focused on the OT cyber capability. Um, just to set the context, so why do we need cyber OT, especially for our own company? So definitely, food and beverage has been a major, you can see here, it's been a focus area for the ransomware incidents. This was taken up from one of the research papers published. And then we have our competitors. These are not our brands, these are our competitor brands. And of course, the target is that we don't ever see our brand in, here ever. But the idea is that Molson Coors, for example, it used to be part of the company some long time back. And when Molson Coors was attacked, it came as a big news within the company. Everyone really felt that yes, if can happen to them, it can happen to us. And in the same way, we have a couple of more brands which were under the attack. But the idea overall was that before we dive into the operations aspect, we wanted to, spend a lot of time on the strategizing on how do we want to take it in the company, because cyber OT was something which was not known, not understood, and the importance of it was something which was tricky to explain. Because if you see, a manufacturing plant has been for decades has just been manufacturing. In this case, a brewery has just been brewing beers and getting them out. So the entire focus is on the demand, supply, the planning, the packaging, the logistics. But the tech aspect of it and the cyber aspect of it is something which is very new for the folks there. And the idea is that first we need to get their buy-in. We need to have them convinced that we need it so that we get the right participation in the OT program. So there are quite a few things which we included in our approach of people, process, and technology. So the technology, if you see, we have EDR, we have firewall. IDMZ is basically where we place a firewall between the OT and IT within the company. So this is different from the perimeter firewall. But the idea was that every brewery should be protected by its own firewall first, and there has to be a segregation between IT and the brewery itself. Then we have other things like OT architecture. So this is something which was being worked upon for because the company is has been going through a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the past decades. So we can't expect every brewery to have the same OT architecture, but the standard which we are following internally is Purdue architecture, and that is something which we had to document so that at least we get all of them on the same level. And this is something which was very important for the success of this OT program because to push for any technology, we first need the network architecture to be at the same level. Endpoint protection because we were using as you can see, we are already using the need for an agent-based solution as well to get deeper visibility and take actions in the later stages. And the rest is the event management which comes under SOC, the intrusion detection, then testing, and so on. People is simple, we have been working a lot on the awareness programs to drive the awareness of just cyber security within the folks who work in the breweries. The staff training, the certifications and the skills. So all these things is something which we have been working on in parallel. And the last one is the process. So just to set the context, we started right away back in 2018 with the OT SOC, and when we started with that, it became a little tricky because there was no governance framework, there were no policies and procedures, and it was getting difficult to drive the program. So in the last couple of years, we have been working extensively on creating these frameworks and the policies and procedures. And especially if I talk about the manufacturing plants and how the things work there, it's a lot on the basis of the documents, and there are extensive documents. As a plant, they document everything, every process. So it was important that we align with their ways of working and have everything listed out. But I will take you through a brief glimpse of the framework which we have in place and the policies and the procedure. But talking about our what is our focus area? Because when we talk about the cybersecurity of a manufacturing plant, there can be tons of things one can work on. But if you see, we have say 4 pillars. Which are physical assets, the protection of the physical assets. Then we have the network and the OT cyber. We have something called as remote maintenance because the equipments which are out there, say from any vendor, Siemens, Rockwell, Honeywell, any vendor, they need to continuously perform the maintenance of these OT equipment or patch them or upgrade them, and for that they need access to that equipment itself, and for that we need to have a secure remote access in place. So that's why we have the secure remote access, and then we have the data sharing, and then we have disaster recovery. But out of all these, what was our focus area, the top four items which we wanted to tackle. So one was having a passive ICS tool in every plant, so that we have the visibility of what is out there and what is going on in the network. Then comes the next level where we have a next gen antivirus in place for the OT assets. Then IDMZ, I talked about it, the firewall between the OT and IT, and finally the secure remote access. So these are the four pillars. These are the four key areas which we have been, working on, and something which we continue, building them. And apart from that, the other things like say data sharing, those are, you can say, something which we plan to work upon in the future. So as I mentioned that I'll take you through, I'll give you a glimpse of how the governance model within the company looks like. So the idea was that we wanted to fit in their own operating model, and this is how they operate. So they have their own pillars within the manufacturing side. They have called safety, quality, environment, maintenance, and logistics. So we had to find the right pillar for us where we could plug in the cyber OT program. Every plant in the company, they have KPIs related to each of these pillars. So what we wanted to do is that, say maintenance, we wanted to plug in the cyber OT program and plug in the KPIs which come along with it. So that becomes seamless for the breweries to take care of the KPIs, and it's not something radically new for them to follow. And then if I talk about the overall governance model, so we have at the plant level, plant here we call as site, brewery, plant, site, it all means the same. So here what we came up with was that there's already couple of managers, automation and maintenance managers, who are doing their job, and we just divided the cyber OT responsibilities between them. So with that, we avoided the need of creating a new role within each brewery, because that would have incurred a lot of maybe the cost aspect and also the training and then fitting them in. So this became easy to implement. And then we have the zones. So in the company we have 6 geographical zone and one virtual zone. The geographical zones are, say, North America, Middle America, South America, Europe, Africa, and APAC. And the virtual zone is the global, the GHQ. So, for example, the board, the CXOs, they all are part of the GHQ, the global zone. And then we have these physical zones completely based on the geography. So for each of these physical zones, it was important to have a cybersecurity team and an architecture team. And then at the global level, we had again a security and architecture team, and then we had the governance and the executive board, where we have, say, some at the global level VP for tech and all who sit out here. But if you see, alongside the cybersecurity team, we have had always the architecture team, and we also have a architecture board in place where we have a connect every month. And the idea is that before introducing any solution, any technology inside a brewery, it should go through this architecture board, so that we have the security practices implemented right from the start. Just to give you an example, we do not allow any solution, any tech which is implemented inside a plant and which can talk directly to the internet. Say if it is a SaaS based platform, it should not directly talk to the internet. It should not reach out to its central console directly. It has to make a jump in the IDMZ first, that is the firewall between OT and IT, and then it has to be rerouted through the IT network and then talk to the internet. So this is one example, and hence if there's any new SaaS based platform introduced by any team from the manufacturing side, it gets reviewed right here. We look at the architecture, and this helps us in enabling the right cyber security practices within the company. Um, and just adding on to it, we have some routines in place. So how many times each of the team should meet and so on. But this is all listed out so that we are following it. And to give you a glimpse of the policies, these are the policies which we have worked upon. We have them in place, and they are published, and each of the brewery, they are supposed to follow these policy and the procedure, the guidelines which come along with them. We have also created, based on the NIST framework, we created some 31 questions which are similar to what we have in NIST, but more relevant for the cyber OT program. And these questions, this is something which has to be filled up by each of the site every month, and based on that they get a score. And of course we have some targets for them. The better the score means, the better secure they are. But this is a very, you can say, it's for more for the site awareness as well, on where they are lacking, where they can improve, and so on. And for us, we are moving closer to the NIST framework with the help of this checklist. Um, okay, so we quickly taking you over how we are structured as the team here. So the entire security operations center and network operations center, we all sit together. We are based out of Bangalore office, and the idea is that we are part of the global, right? So we take care of across the global, all the employees and the technologies and the sites data. But the idea here is that as part of the SOC, we have the OT SOC. So we have some senior specialist, and an intern. So as I told, we are a very lean team. We operate 20 by 6 hours, and we plan to make it to 24/7 in the near future. But the idea is that we are dependent a lot on the automation. And if you see here, we have a senior manager just for automation within the SOC. Who takes care of automation not just for SOC but also for NOC. But the idea is that more the automation plays, less is the need to have big team, and less is the need to have the manual work there. So with that, I will take you through what services we are providing internally. So just this team of 5 and plus one intern, we are delivering these services within the company. So classification of services is based on the tech first. So ICS monitoring, which is the passive based solution which gets installed at the span port of every plant. That is where we do the triaging, and we have developed our own playbooks, and we get the playbooks automated, so that if there is any incident being detected, there is a global ticketing tool, and the incident gets created in that tool itself, and then my team will pick that incident, do the initial level triaging, and then they will reach out to the zone, or the right contacts who should be working on them, and then we assign the ticket, and then we give the recommendations or the remediation steps from our side, and then we work with them to have the remediations in place. And then, of course, we monitor for anomalies as well, in case of these alerts. So this is, the incident response for the ICS monitoring. Then we have similarly the antivirus. So again, collecting the information, and then we take a lot of time for the logs as well for the deep level analysis. We have the secure remote access in place, and then using that, we try to build any correlations which we want to look at further. Basically, as I told, 20 by 6, we have all the tools in place, a global ticketing platform in place, and the one key focus area in terms of incident response is that with that huge amount of data, the detections we get out of these platforms, we want to get more relevant information. So we constantly work on the correlations between the data, and build more relevant use cases, and get only those use cases in the ticketing platform. Any standalone detection which is not correlating to any other detection is categorized as P4, or say noise for us, and that goes under the effort of fine tuning right here. So this is the incident response. Then we have the platform based responsibilities. So anything related to, say, the upgradations, the new threat definitions which are coming up, the user accounts, the integrations, so on. Then for EDR, again, it's a very it involves a lot of work as well, because we are talking about the deployment, the connectivity, the policy advancement from non-intrusive to intrusive. We initially keep a very basic level policy because these are OT assets we are talking about. So the idea is that uh, if there is any level of intrusion, if the device is contained, or if it is sandbox, then it might lead to impact in the OT operations. So we start with very basic non-intrusive, where we just have the visibility, and then slowly, based on the feedback which we get from the folks, from the plant folks, we perform the white listings of, say, the applications and the data, the files, and then once we have the white listings done, then we move towards the intrusive, where we, in case of an actual detection or of true positive, we are able to take actions sitting from here. For example, containing the machine or deleting that infected file. Um, and yes, the agent upgrade and the access reviews. Then similarly for secure remote access, the deployment, the integrations, the monitoring of the connectivity, because this is where we need constant monitoring. We have the vendors who are logging in and who are constantly requesting for the OT assets access. And if this goes down, then the entire access mechanism goes down. There's no way they can access that OT asset. So it's a very important one, just to keep it running and in good health. Um, and overall, yes, troubleshooting the issues, working with the vendor in case of, there are issues or bugs coming up, looking at the health checks, the data aspect, the anomalies, upgrades. And we spend a lot of time on fine tuning as well, because as I said, any tool, it's not any tool is not a magic tool, right, which can set everything right. You have to work with the tool itself based on your own environment, so as to customize it according to what we have. So here, constantly defining the plant subnets, whitelisting the network traffic, which is genuine network traffic. Then we have the false positives, to get rid of them. And then the low priority detections, the standalone detections. So getting rid of them again, how to whitelist them or how to declare that these are genuine traffic. And then we have something called as deep level fine tuning, which we started working on last year. Basically, for every geographical zone, the idea was to spend time for one plant, spend a week or 2 weeks time with one plant, and get uh, our counterparts in the zone trained on how to perform this fine tuning, because for us it will not be feasible and practical to perform this fine tuning for 200 plus sites. But if we are able to train our counterparts in the zone manufacturing side, then they can perform the fine tuning in all their plants. So that was the idea. We did it with one, and then we plan to do it with more this year. But this is something which we want to be there, so that we get only the genuine, the true positive, the relevant detections for us. EDR again, the whitelisting, and then we have SRA, the SRA usage guidelines, and overall recommendations. And apart from these three, which are key focus, then we have a couple of more things. Vulnerabilities again, very important for us. So vulnerabilities are the gaps which are already existing, and we want them to be closed or have alternate remediations in place. And for that, we constantly share the vulnerability reports. We track the numbers with for each of the plant. The input, the source of these vulnerabilities is the ICS passive based monitoring tool, which I would say is which can lead to a lot of noise, because we have seen this kind of passive monitoring tool has no way of finding out the true vulnerabilities or the which are already patched. So since we get a huge amount of vulnerabilities, we had to come up with a prioritization mechanism, and that's why we call it as focus one. So we divided the overall vulnerability counts into three categories: focus one, two, and three. And every quarter we come up with a focus one target, which has to be brought down to zero. Basically, all focus one vulnerabilities should either be remediated, or there has to be some alternative network control in place, and the risk reduction has to be achieved. So that sets the quarterly targets for each of the plant. And then, based on the 0 days and the other news we keep receiving, we share the advisories with them, and we share the asset reports relevant for the advisory. We do a lot of POCs as well. So like I told, we constantly work on increasing the four fundamental pillars to more pillars, and how can we protect these plants from, or rather add more defense layers to these plants. So one is that vulnerability management service. So this is where we want to move to the agent-based solution, where we get the more accurate vulnerabilities, and also there are solutions in the market which can perform patching as well. So this is something we are doing a POC on. The current ICS monitoring solution, we always look out at the market, what is going on, and if there's anything better out there. Asset aggregation is where any solution which can get the assets reporting in all the other solution in the company, and then give a holistic view of those assets. So this is again very important for us when we are doing the investigation or when we are doing the vulnerability analysis, threat intel, forensics, attack simulation, the AD hardening, which is the OT hardening. Again, there's something working on secure config. Deception is again very interesting. So this means having decoys inside the OT environment. And these decoys are basically there to lure the attacker. So if an attacker is able to enter inside the OT network, and they see a decoy, they are more likely to go to that decoy and start performing scan or the reconnaissance activity, and that is where we get an alert. So this has proven a very handy solution for us on the IT side, and we are looking forward to have it there on the OT side as well. And then active scanning. So the ICS monitoring tool is currently passive. We are exploring on how to get on to a more active scanning in place for vulnerabilities, especially. Zero trust is something which has been worked upon a lot this year on the IT side, so we want to bring it to the OT side as well. And then we have, a lot of improvements and routines happening, say our KPIs, so the dashboards for that, new detection use cases, which I talked about when we are trying to correlate the different detections we get from these platforms. Then the aggregation, the fine tuning, meetings with the zones, then research on the latest attacks, and threat hunting is something which we worked on last year. We came up with some 10 threat hunting use cases, and we this year we plan to automate and get them running. But overall, I'm not, I think this covers like 99% of the work which we are doing day in and day out as an OT SOC. And the idea is to, add more capabilities out here, and, add more defense layers. So the overall strategy in the company for cybersecurity program is having the defense in depth, which means adding defense layers. And the ones I've already talked about, the ICS monitoring, asset aggregation, firewalls, deception. So these are the things which we work on actively on the OT side. The gray out ones are there on the IT side, and in future we are going to explore if we can bring them to the OT side as well. But if you see, the core of it is lies right here. So one is that no matter how many technologies we add, our data analytics, the SIEM, XOR, they have to be in place, and our playbooks have to be constantly running, constantly updated. And that's the reason I talked about we are very much dependent on the automation, our internal automation team, for our operations. And then for operations, we have the SOC team, and then we have red team, and we have defense services as well. So this is something which I generally talk about with anyone on the plant side. So we have the recipe for beer here internally, but having the recipe for a secure beer means to have these four pillars strong, because this is the foundation. And then we have additional capabilities which we want to add. So we want more automation, the dashboards, the vulnerability prioritization mechanism, the privilege access management, asset aggregation, deception, and so on. Okay, so talking about the incident response, this is something, can call it like a documented playbook. How do we take care of the incident identification, the investigation response, and the activity? I'll not go into details of it, but the idea is that We have a global ticketing platform, and we make use of that. We have automation internally. We make use of that, and ultimately, the idea is that every incident has to be categorized into its severity, and based on that, we take the action and get the remediations done. Vulnerabilities, I wanted to focus a bit on the vulnerability side because this is something which is which is a priority action item for us. Vulnerabilities, be it OT or IT, has always been a strong focus for the company. So we get huge number of vulnerabilities currently from the ICS passive tool, and we generally, we get a confidence score, full and half, and then we get all kinds of severity. But we are reporting, we filter out only the full confidence vulnerabilities, which is basically, how confident is the tool about the vulnerability itself. We get that score from the tool itself, and we take only high and critical. And out of these, then we search for the exploit on the internet. If there's an exploit available on the internet, then it is included in our report, which goes out to the plants. So on the internet, we use these sources: exploit DB, NVD, and CISA. We basically take the CVE ID, and we make a search for it, and if there's an exploit, it gets added. It's all automated. This entire workflow is automated for us. Only here we do a bit of review checks, final checks and the validation, and that is what is shared across with the breweries. So the idea is that any vulnerability which is high and critical, and which has exploit available on the internet, is the focus for us. But even from those vulnerabilities itself, we still have a huge count of vulnerabilities, which can be overwhelming for any site to tackle. So then what we did was that that entire count of vulnerabilities we divided into focus 1, 2, 3 based on the asset activity and Purdue layer. So, as I told, within the company, we are following a standard Purdue layer architecture, and anything which is on the higher layer, say on the layer 3, is most important for us, because we believe that if an attacker has managed to get into the OT, the entry point will be the layer 3, and then how active the asset is. So if the asset is highly active and it is located at the Purdue level 3, for example, that will go under the focus 1 category. And this is how we showcase, this exact way we showcase it to the plants and to the leadership as well, because it becomes easy to see where how much we have achieved over the years, over the months, and then we rank each of the zones as well, and we show the remediation efforts made by the zones, and we recognize globally the zones which perform the highest level of remediations. So this acts like a motivation factor. Advisories. So any advisory which any 0 days or any kind of new attacking mechanism which has come out, we send out those advisories, and if there are assets to be patched, then we work on them with the plants. And this is something, just to give you a brief glimpse, we have cyber awareness team, which is not part of the SOC, but then they constantly work on the content, and spreading the cybersec awareness. So we work with them to create the content for the plants, and we basically, there are a lot of things like tabletop exercises. We create holiday e-cards for the plant. Then we also have handbooks, quizzes. So those are the kind of things which we work with them to get that kind of content out and pushed to the OT OT plant personnel and who can get more awareness about it. It can be as simple as creating posters. We create the posters and then we ask the OT folks to put up these posters inside the plant, so that any employee entering the plant will look at the poster, and there will be an increased awareness on the cyber aspect. Play the videos, the cyber videos. So those are the kind of things which we target for them, and that's how we are trying to just get the awareness spread out. This is the I think this is something which we have been kind of following it. So having incident response, defensible architecture, visibility monitoring, secure remote access, vulnerability management. So these are like critical controls, and something which we have been pushing across within the company. And yeah, with that, I come to the end. I hope you found this helpful, and I will look forward to the questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Divya. Let me just kind of there are lots of questions there, so let me kind of just pop in there and kind of pick a couple of ones. We've seen a lot of questions around kind of the tools you're using, what you're using for passive monitoring, IDS, SRA. If you're comfortable to share any of these, then please go ahead, and then I'll go to the next question.
I regret I cannot share the exact names of the vendors which we are using here in the company. But maybe after the session I can share
Sure.
yeah, maybe I can share comprehensive list,
Sure.
of the top vendors we,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. One question is, how do you manage to execute SOC processes with teams managing the ICS environment directly? Because like working with first line operators, things like that, what are kind of the challenges? What are the things? I mean, that's very different than working in an IT setup where the people are kind of familiar with the IT environment. These most people on the operation side, on the plants, aren't really familiar with cybersecurity, things like that. So what are the challenges you face as a SOC manager and kind of communicating and working with those operators on the plant?
Right, and very interesting question. So the biggest challenge for me was getting that awareness, the urgency, the importance of cybersecurity in place, because I mean, as I told, right, the plants out there, they are making what they have. I mean, they are manufacturing their product, and that the tech aspect is there because they want to be digitally advanced, but the cyber aspect is something which is alien to them, and that includes the people who are working there. So the biggest challenge, of course, was to get them on board with the program. If we are sending out, say, an incident report, the first question we'll get would be that, okay, so what should I do with the report? Why should I spend time in working on the remediation when I can work on the manufacturing aspect? So with that, we had to take a top-down approach, where we had the leadership. So the biggest thing is having the leadership aligned, both from the technology side and the manufacturing side. So once we had the leadership aligned, then it was based on the governance model and the routines we defined. It was then easier to at least push that, and I think the for our own counterparts, the comparison has been a big motivation. So we have the KPIs, and then we constantly showcase which zone or which plant is doing good and which plant can improve and so on. So that helps. And then the cyber awareness, talking constantly about the attacks happening in the world and how that attack can be replicated. That is one thing. Attack simulation has also played a big role. So we have been trying to do the attack simulations within the OT environment, and that also helps in creating that urgency and that sense of importance for the cyber program. So yeah, it's a mix of all these strategies which we have been working on over the past 5 years.
Cool. Thank you, Divya. So one more thing that I'm getting like consistent set of questions is about kind of log management and kind of in SIMs, especially we see a lot of like one of the big issues with cost management is kind of a number of logs that you get in. I know kind of in earlier conversations with you also, you faced this issue before, right? Number of alerts that come in. How do you kind of manage that both from a price, from a like a price rationalization perspective, and also kind of how do you categorize which are the top ones that you see? What's the normally the top ones you see that from an OT perspective that you have to kind of manage and kind of actively address, right? So maybe there's a two-phase question. How do you kind of rationalize your logs, and which is the top ones you see from a log and alerts perspective?
Right. Uh, for logs, we do not ingest all the logs which are out there. We do, we are very selective about the because as you mentioned, there is a price point attached to it. But what we do is that for any solution which is in place, we make use of the API calls, and using the API calls, we get all the data from that solution, and then we use internally, MongoDB, which is not that expensive, and it works out fine for us. So we store all the data fetched using the API in this MongoDB, and for the incident management perspective, all the data which we get in the MongoDB, there is correlations performed on top of it. So, for example, if there is an asset where we saw some failed login attempts, and we are also failed login attempts is something which we saw, say, using the ICS passive monitoring tool, and then we using the EDI we saw at the same time an infected file being present, and is trying to run a PowerShell script, so it's throwing up a suspicious behavior. So the same asset, if it is involved in multiple detections across the multiple platforms within same period of time, say within 1 hour, so that is when we have the incident created in our global ticketing tool, and we spend our time and energy looking at that incident. So this is how we are able to say, look at the only the relevant ones, and we make use of API calls to get all of the data, and we are selective about the logs.
Thanks. Chitrank, are you there? Can you come off mute and ask the question? Okay, while Chitrank's
Yeah.
coming off mute.
Hi.
Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Hi. Hi, Kunal. Hi, Divya. Divya, I have one question regarding the log collection. So probably there are certain kinds of logs like the six logs or the event logs from the individual endpoints, which a passive monitoring tool fails to collect. No, so the passive monitoring tool always tracks your behavior and does all kind of behavior kind of analysis. Uh, but how you are collecting those logs?
Yeah, so we are yet to increase our scope to that level. Currently, we are
Uh,
collecting logs just from the passive monitoring tool. We do not
okay.
have, that level of connectivity in place where we are able to get the logs from directly from the OT asset.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. So that is your future plans. So I mean to integrate
Yes.
along with the so that you can collect the logs from the assess logs from the endpoints, your firewalls, your switches, whatever it is.
Exactly, yes. That is our future plan. Right now, the idea was to gain the visibility of the plants and make sense out of that visibility and get the program at to a level where we get the participation from our counterparts.
Thanks.
Thanks. I think we have time for one last question. I know there's a lot of questions coming in. Unfortunately, we won't have time for all of you. You've seen Divya's contact details at the beginning of this, and you can always reach out to her on LinkedIn or other questions, right? So kind of feel free to reach out to her, and then but we'll kind of have questions. We'll have time for one last question. Admin, can you just unmute one person, and then we can take that forward? Okay, I'm gonna ask one last question that I'm seeing and kind of seen that a lot, right? That's patching, and how do you manage patching, especially in kind of complex, continuous processes like beer making is, right? And kind of shutting down plants is a challenge, and kind of generally, how does that kind of happen in a OT cybersec environment, right? The cybersec guys always want to patch all the time. The plant guys never want to patch, right? Because they never want to shut down. So how do you manage that? How do you triage that? How do you kind of get that forward?
Right. So I'll talk about what we do right now and then what we plan to do in future. So right now, we share the patch details and the steps. We have documents for that. If it is feasible for them to patch, then well and good. If it is not, then we push for alternate controls, which means, say, reviewing the network connectivity of the asset with the rest of the assets. If it is talking to any asset which it should not, or there's no need to, then we should restrict the connectivity. So that way, we are able to reduce the risk up to some extent. Of course, it is not gone completely, but better than not patching or not taking any action at all. So we give this option to the zones, to the plants, and if they mark a vulnerability, if they declare that they have alternate control in place, we recognize them for that, and we treat it something where they have spent their time and effort on, similar to remediation front. What we are planning to do is, so we have a lab internally where we will simulate these OT devices with exact configuration, and we'll try to perform the patching on top of it to see the feasibility of patching and get the right get the right steps in place. And then we plan to use a tool like, say, SECM or WSUS, which are basically for pushing the policies and for pushing the patches to the machines. So this is something which is, say, a plan, an advanced level plan, but we in future what we want to do is have all the assets where we can just push the patch. We test it out in our lab, and then we push out the patch. Right now, we are open to having alternate control like network restrictions in place if it cannot be patched. Does
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful. Kind of looking at current state and future state. I know we're just about over the top of the hour, so thank you, Divya, for coming in. It's like great to hear, and especially from an asset owner, on kind of journey you've been through your through the OT cybersecurity, kind of from beginning to kind of deployment to now successfully running in OT SOC for a while. So thank you kind of for sharing your journey from an OT security professional perspectives. Please, we're looking for feedback, as I mentioned at the top of the call. If you have any thoughts on how we can get better, what you liked, what you didn't like, please share. There's a QR code right here. Also follow us on our LinkedIn page through this QR code. We also have an active WhatsApp community through and different channels, so you can kind of follow and monitor the channels that you're interested in, and also a Twitter page for kind of what's going on in the latest. There's always news breaking from a OT cybersecurity and general cybersecurity perspective, so Twitter's the place to go. So follow us on your favorite social media platform, and we can be in touch. You can kind of hear about our upcoming events, what we're doing, and be aware of what's going on. Also, just we have some new programs planned for 2024. We're looking to unlock the power of operational technology and kind of connect people throughout in the OT communities. So watch this space for more information. This is as much as I can share for now, but follow LinkedIn and watch the space for more information, and you'll hear kind of interesting things coming up in the pipeline. That's all for now. We will have wish everyone a happy new year in 2024. Please continue to engage with us as you've been doing so far, and we will have more events upcoming in January and beyond. Thank you, everyone, and thanks, Divya, for coming in. Bye.
All right, thank you.